We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
The 1-2 pitch, ball line to Yount, it's short, he throws, it's over! The Brewers have won the American League pennant! Milwaukee, you have a World Series!
Hit in the air, Yount makes a great catch, and Juan Nieves has thrown the first no-hitter in Milwaukee Brewer history!
Swings, and there it is! A base hit in the right center! He's done it! 3,000 for Robin.
And there's a drive in the left field. This is hit well. And it's gone! Twenty run! A two-run home run! The Brewers take the lead!
Morgan, a smash up the middle. Base hit to center. Here comes Gomez. Around third. A throw and the Brewers win! The Brewers are moving on a base hit by Nigel Morgan. Here it is. Yelich sends one to right center and deep. Get up! Get up! Get out of here and gone for Yelich.
You're cruising for Brewsing with me, Andrew Snyder.
And me, Adam McGee.
As we talk all things Milwaukee Brewers for the Eurostep Podcast Network and Blue Wire Podcasts. Adam, as it turns out, the Milwaukee Brewers are not going to go 162-0. Who would have thunk it? Guess that's just the way the cookie crumbles and the way baseball is, Adam. You don't win all your games, and that is okay. I just want to tell anyone that has had a strong reaction to this baseball game on a Wednesday afternoon, it's going to be fine. Brewers are 4-1. Great first week of the season. We're going to get into all the good and the bad. But Adam, how are you?
I'm doing well. Do you want to tell people, first of all, why you still sound like that as opposed to, your usual crisp self? Because it does strike me, not only did you, play a trick on me, a pre-April Fool's of sorts, but also on our podcast listeners, because you could have mentioned this on the last pod.
Yeah, I went from Queens to Chicago to Milwaukee and took in these two games at American Family Field. And I'll make this an ad real quick as well. GSPN.info, join the Discord. For Tuesday's game, I met our good friend Kelp for the game. For Wednesday's game, I met our good friend Logan for the game. And Steven, also a Discord member, hooked Logan up with some extra vouchers, which was able to help me get in the game. And Logan adopted me as a member of his family, and I joined him and his family for the game on Wednesday. So at Cruising for Brewsing, we do not have listeners. We have friends. We're all friends here. And I just appreciated getting to see so many great people and watch baseball with them this week. So, yeah, I kept my journey going. Trip was not ended. I mentioned it as a possibility to you in some of our chats a few months ago, weeks ago. And then I mentioned it in passing on the podcast.
Hold on. You say that as if you don't mention like at least 1 to 2 trips a week as possibilities to me. I can't be expected to think all of these things will happen.
Oh yeah, you're 100% correct in the way you read that. But in this case, it was something that I noticed you not pick up. I was like, oh, I mumbled or my sound went out. I know he did not just hear that I'm going to be at opening day at AmFam. Okay, let me see if it can just be like a funny thing where I'm there on opening day. And Adam's like, "You're the most chaotic man I've ever met in my life." So that's kind of how that thought process progressed. So
Sure. I don't know what to do with it. I'm glad that you went. You had fun. Um, I know. Can you assure your wife and dogs that you will, in fact, return home at some point?
yeah, I'll be back because there was a chance that I wasn't going back just yet. Uh,
Is there
because
gonna
of
be
college
like a call?
basketball.
Well, there's that too, and there's also like, oh, the snow's really bad here. I guess I just gotta, stay through the weekend, and maybe when Seattle leave, I can leave. There's not gonna be any of that at Drewster.
Listen, the roads are clear in Milwaukee. I didn't notice any accumulation anywhere in the downtown area or by the ballpark. I know in other areas there's been some significant snowfall, but all went on without a hitch today. Travel and transit was smooth and sailing. So I will uh, work from both my hotel room in the morning and then the Milwaukee Public Market in the afternoon if you want to come say hi. And then I will head to Mitchell and head home.
Right, I love to hear that. I will shout out the beautiful, story that you paint of the cruising for a Brewsing community. That is fantastic stuff, but I am blaming this loss on Logan. You were on a perfect streak, and then you went to a game with Logan, and it all came tumbling down. I don't know how we can view it any other way. So Logan is owning it. I appreciate
I
that.
know we I know we agree a lot, Adam, but I can't vouch for this take because he
I
showed
don't
me
expect you to
nothing.
mention it. You're part of his
He
family now.
showed,
I appreciate it.
yeah,
I've got to
that is
pin the
true.
blame on someone. And, will I pin it on a man who, we've got a friendly rivalry going on? Yes, I will.
Anything for the content, Adam. Uh, so we're gonna dive into this two-game split between the Brewers and the Twins. Uh, Overall, a good result in my mind. You get a Jacob Junis start, you get a Joe Ross start, you win one of the two. Great, obviously. Uh, each starting pitcher didn't factor into the decision in the way you would think. Obviously, each guy or Junis going four and Ross not being able to get out of the fourth kind of impacts the bullpen usage and how the games play out from there. But each of them limited the damage to a degree. But before we get into that, we'll start with the news and notes. And I've got the first news and note. Uh, so Trevor McGill, who pitched two scoreless innings in New York earlier in the week or last weekend, I guess it is now. Um, Apparently, McGill got food poisoning when he was in New York on the road trip. And when he returned home to Milwaukee, went to the store, fainted, per the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Todd Rosiak and Kurt Hogue, hit his head on the way down, causing a concussion on the 7-day concussion IL, retroactive to March 31st. JB Bukowskis recalled in his absence. Uh, the Brewers have gotten nothing but weird injury breaks uh, throughout spring training, and now that um, is impacting the early season. McGill, scary incident, obviously fainting, and especially a guy of his size going down like that. That's a scary thing to imagine, but and also something that arguably impacted the game today. McGill not being available and some of the decisions Pat Murphy had to make led to some late game issues. And we just hope McGill's okay, gets himself right, and is back for the rest of the season because he's a big part of this bullpen. Guy that got from the Twins last season and has been a real success story. So hope McGill's okay.
Yeah, not just a spring training or this season thing. The Brewers just have a far from wonderful history of really weird injuries or things like this. So this is the latest in a long catalog of them. And yeah, as you rightly say, I think
Shout out
particularly,
Jonathan Lucroy.
I mean, we could shout out a ton of people. We'd shout out Devin Williams punching a hole in the wall. Um, I think you nailed it. Like, this is scary for the idea of a man of his size. Like Trevor Miguel's what, 6'7", 6'8". Going crashing down in a store, banging his head. Yeah, you don't want anything like that at any time. So that's really the only The only concern with this is let's hope Trevor McGill feels as okay as he could feel and is very much on the mend and is back to business playing baseball very, very soon. But yeah, really unfortunate and quite scary for a freak incident. It's just there is always something like this. Rowdy Tellez, obviously, the injury he got last season is another in this kind of line of weird Brewers injuries. Um, but yeah, very, very far from ideal. Just forced Pat Murphy into some maybe overthinking, which backfired, where I think how he would have handled the late innings would have just kind of naturally unfolded in front of itself if Trevor McGill had been available. That's kind of by the by, though. It's not the most important part in this long season to go, and much more important is Trevor McGill's health after banging his head. So again, well wishes, and let's hope that he's back on the mend and back on the mound very, very soon. I'll take us through a few other
Yeah.
bits of injury news and notes. One that we didn't really we had so much to talk about with the sweep of the Mets, we never actually got around to the injury to a notable prospect, maybe one of the most notable prospects. Certainly, Jackson Chourio's up in the big leagues and within the Brewers system on the last pod, and that is a pretty scary looking shoulder injury for Jefferson Quero playing for the Nashville Sounds. Um, I guess the upside of us not talking about it on that episode is we now have a little bit more detail, though we don't have full clarity yet. The diagnosis for Quero is a right shoulder subluxation, which could really lead to a very wide range of potential outcomes yet. And at the moment, it is going to be, care and rest, relaxation. And when the inflammation goes down, then they'll take another look at it, and we'll get a better sense of where things are at. When I saw subluxation, I did immediately think of Garrett Mitchell. He dealt with multiple subluxations in his left shoulder, which I believe is some kind of separation from the joint, if I'm remembering correctly from what we looked at last year. So maybe not necessarily a full dislocation. Not a doctor. Any doctors, you can update us on this. But
Adam,
this
make
could be
time for
something that
this.
sees
Top
him.
10 films of the year.
Well, that's true. I did talk about quite a number of medical based documentaries on that. Not a doctor though. We'll see. This could be something that keeps Jefferson out for quite a long time. Let's hope that's not the outcome because it would be a real blow to someone that I think we were expecting to see at some point this year. Um, and it's the kind of thing you just don't want that kind of bump in the road in any really kind of impressive prospects development. So tough break right to open up the season within the Brewers system, and hopefully good news awaits when the inflammation goes down with Jefferson Quero.
And it makes it all the more important that Eric Haas cleared waivers and was outrighted to Nashville. So Caro, a guy who we would deem to be next man up in the event that William Contreras or Gary Sanchez would go down. Now it looks like Haas will be in Nashville and be an option in that event as well. So hate that it happened for Caro. Good news on Haas. Um, Wait to hear more information. But I do have positive injury news for you, Adam, and you know this because we just discussed it. Do you want me to get into that real quick?
Yeah, which one's this? I have news too. You can take it away if you've got the stuff.
I'll take one, then you take the other. We're doing a dance. Sorry, my
Oh,
Wi-Fi is terrible.
are you staying in
Per Kurt
Nashville?
Hoke, Robert Gasser. I'm staying in Nashville. Per Kurt Hoke, Robert Gasser is progressing well. Matt Arnold said it's looking like he might be back to game action sooner rather than later. Mid to late April is the target as of now. So will that kind of bump up against this 13-day or 13 game and 13 games and 13 days stretch that we've got coming up? Or will it factor into later in the month where maybe they need to IL a starter for, you know, a concussion, right shoulder inflammation, a bump on the head? Who knows? But it sounds like optimistically, it seems like Gasser will be available to maybe get some Nashville starts in, and then be available late April, early May, or maybe they want those starts to come in Milwaukee. Maybe optimistic and hopeful in that case, but at least the bone spur issue doesn't seem to be something that's going to keep them on the shelf for a lot of the season.
Yeah, that's good news. It's still, I think it's really unfortunate. We had talked previously, Pat Murphy had essentially, said you're going to see him very soon, and when you'll see him is that 13 games and 13-day stretch. It now looks like even on the most optimistic kind of side of the timeline we're talking about, he will not be available during that time. Maybe coming out the far side of that, there is potential. They're out on the road again. Maybe more realistic when they return home. Yankees, Rays, if he was to go straight to the majors. Honestly, I think with the way things have looked in recent days, with the guys who, there's gonna be some tough outings down towards the back half of the rotation where not necessarily that it's terrible, but you're gonna get 4 innings quite regularly and you'll really need to dip into the bullpen. I think that is gonna lead to us seeing some version of a six-man rotation where possible. I don't know how possible that is right now or until someone like Gasser is ready, though. Wade Miley's return will also factor into that and will be a big game changer, and hopefully that is soon. I didn't actually have that noted here, but he is scheduled to pitch in Nashville on Friday, I believe, and all going well, he will then likely join up with the Brewers on the road trip somewhere between Cincinnati and Baltimore and probably factor in somewhere along there. I'd guess if all goes well in
Helpful.
Nashville, we see Wade Miley in Baltimore. Um, the other piece of injury news, also good news, is that Garrett Mitchell's fractured left index finger hasn't shifted and is healing as expected. That was reported by Adam McCalvy. Yeah, great to see Adam McCalvy back on the beat, reporting from AmFam in recent days. Um, that leaves it that it's still looking like 4 to 6 weeks for Garrett Mitchell. So end of April, early May again seems the likely window for him. So look, we could be in a place where if the Brewers can stay healthy over this month, which there's a lot of games, and we'll see how that goes. They could actually have quite a few guys come back into the mix from mid-April to early May, and some different options open up.
Football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for the playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks. Prize Picks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So for basketball games, this means if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second, that player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entry stays live. Download the app today and use the code BLUEWIRE for a first deposit match up to $100. That code is BLUEWIRE for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BlueWire. Just go to Indeed.com/BlueWire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/BlueWire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Baseball really is a war of attrition, is it not, Adam? I just got news. that because of the Wade Miley start in Nashville, I'm actually supposed to go to Nashville on Friday. So
Doesn't
I
surprise
will
me.
see Wade Miley there. Um, is that all the injury news we have? Is there anything else we missed? We got Caro, we got McGill, we got Miley, Gasser, Mitchell, and then we got Haas remaining with the organization. Should we talk about the games this week, Adam, or is there anything else you want to get into before we do that?
No, I mean let's talk about the games. I mean, we can start off if you want to give just a sense of you gave a sense of what it was like being at the season opener, but I guess let's start on the positive and the general vibes. What was it like in Anthem for home opener?
Oh, it was packed. I mean, I think they announced a sellout crowd if I'm right. If not, it was still a packed crowd. Obviously, that had the parking issues that they had with the activation of the I guess the new digital code. Or it reminded me of like when football clubs in England were going to the new like
Mm.
NFT or whatever it was called ticket a few years ago, and the first time they would enact it, it was a disaster. It seems they did the right thing, and they were just like my joke about it's Fury Road, just park wherever you want. There are no laws today, and
NFC,
so
NFC, by the way, not NFT,
oh,
which is
sorry, yeah,
an important
NFC, sorry,
distinction.
very important, very important. My advice to anyone going in was just park wherever you want. There are no laws today. My Uber driver who picked me up from the No Free Ads hotel near the Milwaukee Public Market, I'll give them a free ad because it's a great place to work and eat in the middle of the day. Um,
Oh, I was about to ask, did you get a job there?
well, they have free Wi-Fi, Adam, so I'm able to sell my wares there. My driver said they'd never been to the ballpark area and they had like no idea what to do. So where you get to that spot where it's like you go either into one of the parking lots or you go right to the rideshare area in the Gantner lot, which is where that drop off is. They were just freaking out and they're like, I don't know what to do. And it's raining and they're at the spot where they can turn left at the light and go like back down toward the Fairfield where we stayed in and then kind of reset themselves and not get in the game day traffic. So I said, I'll just hop out here. So I sprinted across intersections through the rain. Uh, that's neither here nor there, but
This
that
is
was the
this is
first.
like God. Rich Schlesinger will be delighted at this. When I asked what opening day was like, I didn't expect a full parking lot breakdown.
Yeah, it was so many parking lot things were going on, but great crowd. Dom Chourio said that he thought Pat Murphy got the biggest ovation when they were unveiling the team. I think it was pretty evenly split between Pat, Reese Hoskins, obviously after his
Mm.
heroics in Queens, Jackson Chourio, Yelich, and obviously Brandon Woodruff, who's running out there. Uh, Obviously not going to be a factor in this season, but like it was hard for me not to just break down in tears in my seat seeing that man run onto the field. Like I just love him so much.
I mean, you haven't had the chance to have this kind of experience yet, but just seeing him like in the background in the dugout, or just chilling out up on the edge of the dugout, is its own kind of joy that I think is it brings a level of reassurance. We may not see him pitch this season, but it is nice to see him around the place.
Yeah, and I didn't get to check out the new food options, the Third Street Market kind of food court area. I think it's
I,
on the
I,
Loge
I saw
level
some steak
and
tacos
around.
up looked like on Lodge level, so I guess that's where they came from.
It would have had to be. I love the tacos over there at the one, you know, in downtown.
Hmm.
Um, but opening day, I was me and our buddy Kelp we were in left field, so getting to that area of the ballpark with the opening day foot traffic was tough. It's like you stay in your area after a certain point because it's just mayhem and congestion at all points. Did not have that issue today. I was very comfortable today, but also didn't venture out because I'd eaten beforehand. But yeah, I think so. This is 2 years in a row now. This is the last time for a while that I make this podcast about me, but obviously went to road opening day at the Cubs last year, and then we all went to Brewers opening day. This year I did opening day with the Mets, and then the home opener again. So kind of followed the same track. I kind of want to just make this a tradition for myself and family, and if I have a kid or whatever, like the Brewers open on the road, I go to the road. We go to the road series, and then we go to the home series. If they open on at home, I go to the home opener. Maybe don't go to the road opener, so it kind of flip flops whether I'm doing one series or two series based on the year. But there's just something great about the energy in a ballpark on opening day, where like as you told me the other day, like that anything is possible kind of vibe that it has, and just it's a celebration of in many cases a city, a team, a fan base, players, and it's just kind of pure pageantry and baseball. And there's something I like to celebrate about that early in the season before we get into like July and the team's on a 4 game losing streak and we're all upset with name a player and someone's got a problem with him. So there's something just refreshing and rejuvenating about going through this process.
Sure is. All right, that's enough about you, Andrew. Tell us about the games.
I know I hated doing that right now. I want to bury myself in a hole, to be honest with you. Uh, Brewers Twins. Jacob Junis on the mound against Louis Varland, uh, former Brewer Gus Varland, his brother. Unless I've just mixed that up.
No, no,
Jacob Junis.
I think you're right on that.
Jacob Junis looked great and through his first 3 innings. One thing I don't like about watching in person is I don't get a good sense for pitch mix and where pitches are landing. Although the Brewers on opening day had like some pitch usage data on one board. Today they had a pitch sequence per at bat information on one board. So it's like they kind of are changing things up. They're trying to figure out what the game day experience is going to be. But I like all of it. If you want to give me Statcast pitch data and then also what they're doing during the game, I like it. But through 3 innings, scoreless for Eunice or Junis, sorry, the microbrew Kurt Hogan, J.R. Radcliffe, where they call him Jakob Eunice. It's in my brain now. It's Jacob Junis. So apologies for that, friend of the podcast, Kurt Hogue. In the second, the Brewers would get the scoring started. Rhys Hoskins reaches on an infield single. Oliver Dunn follows that up with a single of his own. Bryce Terang follows that up with a single, and then Jackson Chourio with the Twins bringing the infield in the second inning in a 0-0 game in the second week of the Major League Baseball season. Chourio singles to right, scores Rhys Hoskins, makes it 1-0. In the bottom of the third, Christian Yelich crushes a homer to left center field, 423 feet, makes it 2-0. After that, an Adames fly out to center. Jake Bauers grounds out to third. Rhys Hoskins takes a pitch in the hand, it looked like from my angle. I was a little worried in the ballpark that it might have been something dangerous, but didn't look like it. Oliver Dunn walks, and then a Bryce Terang dumped in double to the left, makes it 3-0. After three, it's 3-0 Brewers. Adam, what was the vibe watching it on TV in Ireland?
The vibe was good. I mean, obviously, to see a continuation of the winning baseball that we saw in New York, to see them come out of the gate hot in the home opener was very positive. Jacob Junis looked very, very good, I have to say. Like, again, I think we're gonna have to get used to kind of grading on a curve somewhat when it comes to the rotation because the expectations are going to be very different of your Jacob Jonas's and your Joe Ross's than they will be of your Freddie Peralta, your Wade Miley, and I guess DL Hall's going to fall very squarely in the middle of that, and we hope his play reaches a level pretty quickly where we expect more of him than less of him. But I do think it is reflective of something, and Jonas is a good example. I mean, we talked through injuries and all those injury updates. He himself was banged up. He didn't get to pitch a whole lot in spring training. He missed his last scheduled start with shoulder soreness. So he ends up going out there, 1 earned run, 4 innings pitched, and only 47 pitches. It wasn't all, imperious. It wasn't perfect, but I thought it was a very good outing. And it was one of those where if he wasn't just kind of, I don't want to say battling through, but if there wasn't something that in the back of his mind, the back of the Brewers' mind, they needed to be careful with, I think he would have given them another inning, if not even another 2 innings, and that could have spared the bullpen some. And I think that's going to be part of the story of this series, certainly when we get on to the second game. But it's tough that DL Hall start didn't help them. And even with a day off in there, it's tough because usage has been quite high for the bullpen. Um, really, when outside of Freddie Peralta, you're not getting quality starts, and we could see a lot of that this year. It's part of the new equation that we're going to have to get used to. But I think Junis looked pretty good. I hope that shoulder feels good, and next time around he pitches well again, and maybe he can push a little bit further. But 47 pitches, 3 hits allowed, 1 walk, 1 earned run. That's solid work, particularly from what we're kind of looking from for him. And I think it is reflective of all the pitchers we've seen so far. I think Dale Hall maybe struggled most compared to what he can do and what we'll hope to see him do. Um, but there have been good signs in there for all of the guys kind of down the line. And then there's also elements where it's like, yeah, I could see where the improvement needs to come, but I could see a path to Jonas being a very, very strong pitcher in the Brewers rotation. And the reality is they're going to need it. And the difference between going 4 innings and 5 innings is going to be colossal for this team cumulatively as the year goes on. I think in the aggregate, the difference between getting that extra inning and saving one bullpen arm per day could amount to a pretty significant amount of wins with the way the Brewers are constructed. So it's something that I think with the back half of the rotation, I'm going to be very mindful of. Maybe even when it comes to Master Brewer leaderboard, it's like when these guys will get to five, and they've put the Brewers in position to win. I think that will really be the key measure of have they done their job. And on occasions, if you can get 6, that'll be a colossal bonus. But I think it was an interesting start all around where Junis looked pretty good. But the Brewers had to remain cautious, and it didn't hurt them in terms of the outcome on this particular day, but it may have just factored into what ultimately backfired by the time the series had finished.
Yeah, it's the difference between one or two guys doing that in a turn for a rotation and three guys doing it, which is what happened this week with Hall going 4, Junis going 4, and Joe Ross not being able to make it out of the fourth, which we'll talk about soon. 3-0 after 3, the top of the fourth is where Junis would face some adversity. Alex Kirilloff singles to right. Byron Buxton follows that with a bloop single to right. That bloop single was kind of a bit unlucky, and I think was one of the things that maybe kind of derailed this outing. Obviously, you got the shoulder thing you mentioned, and him not getting fully ramped up, which I think Jack Stern from Brewer Fanatic tweeted about. Max Kepler then lined out to right. Kirilloff tagged up and went to third. Carlos Correa walked. Wallner sac fly to right scores Kirilloff, and then old friend Carlos Santana grounds out to second. That would end Junis's day after 4 innings. Coming on in relief of Junis was Elvis Peguero. He does a 1-2-3 fifth inning, and then also gets him out in order in the sixth, I believe. So 2 innings from Peguero, once again limiting damage in this kind of fireman role that he's been entered into, which is great to see. He would start the 7th inning, walks Carlos Correa. Then the Twins would pinch hit Manny Margot for Wallner. Hobie Milner comes in. Obviously, that switch to the right-hander to face Milner. He would walk Manny Margot, force a ground out from Carlos Santana. Fielding error on William Contreras next would add another runner to the mix. One where he just tried to pick up the ball and kind of, I don't know if he didn't get a handle on it or just kind of dropped it. Just one of those things there. Christian Vasquez then hits a sac fly to left to make it 3-2, scoring Correa. Kyle Farmer pinch hits for Edward Julian, and then Farmer would strike out. 3-2 Brewers after the top half of the 7th. Nothing doing for the Brewers in the bottom of the 7th. Yoel Payamps comes on in the 8th for the Brewers. Gets a Kirilloff ground out. Buxton line out. Max Kepler pop out to get out of the inning. Nothing doing from the Brewers in the bottom of the 8th. And then Abner Uribe comes on in the 9th inning. Adam's guy, all of our guy at this point, just fan favorite to the max. You can hear it when he's running into Kid Rock's Cowboy. And I will get you for that in a minute because you put the quote at the end of the day. Starts off a little rocky, walks Carlos Correa, no bother. Manny Margot, ground out uh, to the shortstop, or sorry, it was ground out to Reese Hoskins. So behind the curtain, I'm trying to read this off my phone because of the Wi-Fi, reminding myself of what happened in this game as I recap. Ground ball to Jake Bowers at first base. Bowers throws it to second. The turn, and who is there to stretch and get the out at first base? Adner Uribe, and then kind of does a little twirl, pops up. Then a Carlos Santana ground out at second. Game over. Adner Uribe, another save. Sorry for mixing up all the players there, but Adner just rules, and it's just one of my favorite people in the universe. Adam, I'll turn it over to you.
He's just box office. I mean, it's not just the pitches. Um, it's not even a joke to say this particular pitcher is an athlete. That was an incredibly athletic play at first base. It was one of those things where the play's unfolding, and in your brain, you're glancing around, you're like, okay, double play is there. And then you see who's going over, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a tough play for a pitcher to make. And it was a tough play. He made it look very, very easy. No, I won't say comfortable, but he's an athlete. He's flexible. He pulled it off. And yeah, as for his new walkout, he was asked about it after the game, and he laughed and he said, "Yeah, I want to be a cowboy." And who can get on board with this? It's just incredible. I mean, I really think we might be cooking with something. I am not someone who's generally going to advocate for, Kid Rock songs as as choice of walkout, but I think this might be something we can all get behind. There's something in this. After holstering his gun, um, really just kind of showing up the Mets, shushing the Mets, all of that, to then come back, walk out to Cowboy and say he wants to be a Cowboy. This is the good stuff. If you're not having fun with a young reliever who could throw up to 103, who can make plays like that at first base, and who's shushing opposing dugouts, holstering his gun and wants to be a Cowboy, I don't know. This whole sports thing might not be for you.
Yeah, I mean, just love being in the ballpark to watch Abner Uribe run out of the bullpen. And I don't want Devin Williams to be hurt, but the silver lining in that cloud is that at least everyone gets to experience a few moments of Abner running out in the closer situation as the dude. So very
We
fun
know where
and good for
we know where we're going though on that too, Andrew. I think it's the part that we probably haven't talked about too much,
yeah,
but
yeah.
we know where Devin Williams' future is going to be. We know the cycle that we're going to see play out here from the Brewers again. Um, this may, in the longer term, prove to be a blessing in disguise for them, because so far Abner's proved up to the task, and if that continues to be the case and he gets lots of reps, lots of experience as a closer, hopefully the Brewers in a great position. Devin comes back and the bullpen is like really, really strengthened to the extremes for a late season run and a postseason run. But for the future beyond that, there won't be any of the question marks. Is Abner ready? Can he do it? He will already have done it, hopefully, and done it as well as he started the season. So the Devin Williams injury is undoubtedly bad news. Abner Uribe getting his chance, and if he's going to take it like he has so far, that is a very clear upside that could play to the Brewers' benefit when it comes to how good they're going to be in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we will have seen him do it by the time it's his job for the foreseeable future. And well, it is for the foreseeable future as we wait for Devin Williams to return potentially in June. But Abner Uribe is up to the task thus far. Uh, Game two, Adam, that I just got back from. Uh, Frigid day for a Southerner in Milwaukee. You know, I think everyone else was fine, but I was cold. Joe Ross making his first start, I think, since 2021, if I'm
21.
remembering that correct. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
2021 uh, against Chris Paddock, who has had injury issues of his own in his career. And this is a game that started off pretty well for the Brewers. Joe Ross, no trouble in the first. Brewers strand the bases loaded In the bottom of the first, Rhys Hoskins at the plate with the bases loaded, hits the ball pretty decently to third base, but ends up a double play. Obviously, him running on that surgically repaired knee, and he is not the fleetest of foot in general as a player. Ross pitches a scoreless second as well. In the bottom of the second, the Brewers get on the board. Sal Frelick reaches on an infield single to the pitcher. This was a play where he was originally called out. The challenge was successful. Frelick safe at first base. Gary Sanchez flies out. Uh, Frelick advances on a wild pitch by Paddock. Really great. I think was this the one where it was really great instincts on him to just go as soon as he saw that ball hit off the catcher's chest plate, and he just takes off, gets there. Can't remember if I'm conflating this with another one, but
No, I think
Frelick
you're
just good
right.
instincts. Yeah, and Frelick played great defense in center too, so even broke out a little bit with the bat today, um, with the infield single kind of kicking that off, and then had another hit. But great defense in center, and just his reads on base running decisions and also defense in center has not slumped. Joey Ortiz would then follow that with a single through the 5.5 hole, we'll call it, between third base and shortstop. Bryce Strang then works a full count, great at bat, hits a sac fly to center, makes it 1-0 scoring Frelick. So 1-0 for the Brewers after the bottom of the second. Joe Ross, again, a scoreless third. Brewers nothing doing in the bottom of the third. Joe Ross in the fourth run into some trouble. Carlos Correa strikes out swinging to start the inning, walks Carlos Santana. Castro singles to right. After Ryan Jeffers ground out to third, he would walk Kyle Farmer to load the bases. Manny Marco would then hit for Julian. Again, Rocco Baldelli playing the platoon matches there. Hoby Milner comes on and induces a bunt ground out to third. A great play by Joey Ortiz, which was called safe on the field, and again, reversed due to replay review. So nice play by Ortiz, nice stretch by Rhys Hoskins. Joe Ross leaves the game up 1-0, making it through 3 2/3 innings. 2 hits, no runs, but 5 walks, 3 strikeouts, 73 pitches in 3 2/3 innings. We talked about DL Hall missing in the zone in his start a few days ago. For Joe Ross, it was missing out of the zone, and the walks were the really thing holding him back from this outing. But while it hurt kind of the flow of pitchers out of the bullpen, he did limit damage, but the walks are going to be something to monitor going forward.
It was a very simple, particularly he started very well. I don't know from your vantage point how clear this was. He lost command on the fastball, and he was just everything was just straight up above the zone. Everything was high. Like he could not get the ball to drop into the zone for a pretty significant period of time. So he was really battling, which is unfortunate because his command actually looked great to start the game. Um, I don't expect that to be a problem on an ongoing basis. Obviously, this was a big day for him, and it's been a long time since he's been out there. So I would be a little bit, I guess, lenient in how I'd assess this too. But it was really that simple. And I think to your point, like this could be fine, and we move on, and we go, you know what, good job, no runs allowed. That's the main thing, Joe Ross. But it's the cumulative nature of we've had a few
Yeah,
outings in the first week of the season with the starter not getting beyond four, and it's tough because the guys who end up kind of wearing this loss have been the heroes in wins up until now, and you're just asking a lot of them, and eventually it's gonna bend or it's gonna break, and we saw some of that here. I think it's not a bad thing to have a lesson like this very early in the season, not to get too complacent with usage. But also this is just, tough couple of days, particularly after the McGill news, like to navigate this otherwise. There were some other options which we maybe get into in a moment. But yeah, there's an element to this which I'm kind of like, you're in a tough spot. Some things I would have done differently, but I'm not going to guarantee they would have worked out any better either. This is just going forward where you're going to need guys to give you more than 4 innings. As I said, to get to five, occasions where you can get to six with the back end of the rotation guys, you're going to feel like you won the lottery. So that's what the ask is going to be. I don't think it's beyond any of them. Like when you look at the various situations, I think between them, there's good reason to say, yeah, I think they can get there. They'll have less pressure or less kind of weird feelings. It won't be as monumental when they put their next starts in. There was like some element of it that was significant, really for all of Jonas, DL Hall, and Joe Ross. Um, I'm excluding Colin Ray from this just because we know what Colin Ray is. Colin Ray gave them the 5-2, which again, that's got to be par for the course for these guys. But yeah, I think Joe Ross, there was some very good stuff in there early on. He really worked quickly through his first couple of innings, but he lost command and it was high. It Things got tough. I tip my hat to him for not allowing kind of major damage to be done. But in some ways, yeah, he opened the door for that by making some guys have to pitch again, for making some guys have to pitch earlier than you would have liked to see them, and it just kind of had a snowball effect.
Yeah, Hobie Milner on in the fifth after getting out of the previous inning allows an Alex Kirilloff single to right. Byron Buxton follows that with a single to center. Runners on first and second. Max Kepler flies out. Then JB Bukowskis comes on for Milner. Starts off the inning by walking Carlos Correa. Carlos Santana grounds into a fielder's choice to second. I think that was one where Terang was kind of closer to first base, turned and threw to Adames at second. Adames held the bag to get the out, um, and they would only hit one there. Correa out at second. Um, Kirilloff scores. 2-1 Brewers at that point. Then Castro lines out to right. Chourio makes a nice play on that kind of awkward line drive there. And then Chourio leads off the next inning, bottom of the fifth. Daniel Duarte on the mound for the Twins. Chourio 402 feet homer to right center field. First homer of his big league career. 20 years old. Great moment to be in the ballpark for. And yeah, in a game that will eventually get pretty bad as we finish recapping. Nice to see Chourio get his first career homer in the books early in his career.
Colossal moment. To make it about you again. I'm very excited and glad for you that you were there for that. That could be a moment that seriously for what he could be for the franchise over the next decade plus, what we hope he'll be. He could become one of the most significant players to ever be a Brewer. That's what the hope is at the level of prospect he is, and certainly his start is not gonna dampen those kind of dreams. And if that's the case, you being there for his first home run and the fact that it just didn't become something hanging over him, first series of the season at AmFam, taken care of. Um, Nothing is phasing him. He looks great. It's very, very exciting.
Very much so. JB Bukowskis pitches the sixth, bounces back from the walk and allowing the inherited runner to score. We'll be interested to see what he provides for the Brewers this season. Here's where the game got a little hairy at him. Yoel Payamps, who I believe I read was working for the fourth time in 5 days,
Correct.
uh, comes onto the mound and just didn't have it. Probably a little tired and just being stretched too thin because of the weird injury to McGill. Alex Kirilloff starts the inning with a double. Byron Buxton follows that with a double of his own to make it 3-2 Brewers. Gets a Max Kepler pop out. Then Carlos Correa singles to score. Byron Buxton, old friend, new foe. Carlos Santana singles to put runners on first and second with just one out there. Bryce Wilson comes on for the Brewers there. I was kind of surprised that Murph didn't go for a more uh, stuff-based approach there with Thiago Vieira, excuse me, available in the bullpen, and I think he had not been used to this point this year. Terang would get a ground out from Castro, fielder's choice, uh, to start his outing, and then Ryan Jeffers, the catcher, homers to make it 6-3. Just the dagger blow to this game for the Brewers. Wilson gets out of the inning, and then the Brewers have nothing going in the bottom of the seventh, and Wilson stays on and gets through the eighth, but at that point 6-3 Brewers after the top of the eighth, and just a big blow to their chances there. Something that, like you mentioned, the cumulative effect of starters only going 4 innings or less than 4 innings and just asking a bit much of the bullpen because of the situation you're put in, especially with McGill's injury.
Yeah, you got to be careful too. I mean, I get the instinct, but to go to your best guys and put them in those spots, I feel a little sorry for Hobie Milner to start this season. Um, I'm sure Hobie Milner would like one opportunity to come in with a clean inning and just establish some confidence and be like, this is what I am as a pitcher. It's the kind of thing where over time, I think the fireman reputation can come back to bite you a little bit if you're only being put in these really high pressure spots where every slight mistake you make ends up magnified. So I think that's tough. And
Adam,
for go on.
sometimes the fireman just wants to have one call where they're just getting the kitten out of the tree.
That's
So I
it.
agree with you completely.
Yoel Payamps, he had been pretty immaculate up to this point. I don't believe he had allowed any runs. And I can see what Pat Murphy was doing in terms of I messaged you at the time, like, this is interesting giving him the seventh. I think he the thinking was this is the heart of the order. If Payamps takes care of them, it should kind of clear the path for maybe someone not quite as experienced in high leverage situations have an easier run at it in the eighth, and then Abner comes in and closes it out in the ninth. The problem is when you start getting that far ahead of yourself, you're asking for trouble. And for Payamps, velocity was down all over. Um, if not all 4 hits, I do believe at least the first three that he gave up came on his slider, which is usually one of the, I guess, the most effective pitches of any bullpen pitcher for the Brewers. His sliders wasn't working today. The Twins were hitting it, and that put him in a really tough spot. And I agree with you. I thought Wilson coming in was strange. I would have liked to see Hudson. Honestly, I might have brought Hudson in a whole lot earlier. Was he the final game of the series against the Mets? I'm just trying to think. Is there
He was, yeah, he was Sunday.
okay? So he pitched 3 innings there. Maybe they just would rather not have had to go to him in that kind of way again. But I mean, there was a day off between the series. I think it would have been a good spot, and I think there was opportunities there, and it might have given you something interesting. And he pitched very well, and he's got his own kind of interesting elements to his stuff. Um, I would have gone that direction maybe a little bit earlier, and I think if you could have kept Piamps in the eight, maybe you even see some better results. But look, it was a tough spot. I don't think Murph got it right, but you're not going to get it right all season long. Um, and it just kind of necessitated them find themselves here. Thiago Vieira, he should be used, not kind of thrown in the spot he was or having to wait that long. I think he could be someone who could really help the Brewers, and it was strange that it was taking so long to get to him. So going forward, I'd like to see him get some opportunities. I don't think there's anyone in this bullpen that the Brewers should be afraid to use. That could evolve. There could, and there almost certainly will. This is how bullpen arms work, but there will be some guys who might just kind of lose it completely. Um, in a way, I guess, where it's like someone like Elvis Peguero had a spell mid to late stages of last year where it really went bad. And now you look at Elvis to start the season, he probably looks better than anyone in the pen at the moment. Like his stuff has looked phenomenal. He's getting outs. He's pitching multiple innings in a way that we hadn't really seen from him before. But I just gotta be careful. Gotta be careful with the 4 times in 5 days. Not just in terms of managing health, but also managing confidence and not setting up your best relievers to fail on occasion. I don't know, is that wrong of me? Is there something kind of old fashioned in that? But I don't think would necessarily happen, but I would rather Thiago Vieira, for example, who have got that shot. And if he ends up wearing it and picking up 4 runs, you go, okay, pushing Piamps like that and him being the guy who kind of takes it. I don't know. I'm not crazy about that.
Yeah, I don't think you're being unfair. It was a tough situation just by virtue of not having a guy like McGill that is high leverage arm that you would trust in that situation. Um, but you kind of have to adjust from there. So I don't think you're being unfair. It just kind of is what it is. Uh, Thiago Vieira would get in this game in the ninth, down 6-3. Walks Carlos Correa. Carlos Santana flies out, gets a ground out from Castro, and then Ryan Jeffers again just tormenting us today. Singles to score Correa, makes it 7-3. In the ninth, Brewers would get a Rhys Hoskins walk. Andre Monasterio pinch hits for Sal Frelick, strikes out swinging. Gary Sanchez strikes out looking. Oliver Dunn strikes out swinging. Brewers lose 7-3, 4-1 on the season. Split with the Twins after sweeping the Mets. Tough day overall, but I don't think you and I are going to put ourselves in the panic camp, Adam. As much as we may have been optimistic, just I don't want to say to a fault, but just like we were all in on saying people don't understand this Brewers team's actually going to be good, and we don't know if that is wholly accurate until Memorial Day, middle of June, July, when we see this whole season. Um, we're not going to let one loss throw us into a tizzy, we'll say.
Absolutely not. I think the one thing that they need to have and maybe to weigh up, and like that could be the Bryce Wilson role, certainly was last year. You need innings eaters. Maybe that becomes easier when Miley's back too. Like it could be a role that someone like Ross ends up in as the season goes on. Um, I think that's the one thing to be careful in here. If Freddie Peralta is going to pitch really well this season, if we trust Colin Ray to do that, Wade Miley comes back into the mix. And let's hope DL Hall stuff kind of wins out and he ends up a very
Yeah,
productive big league starter. Like if that's the case, you're gonna win 3 to 4 games out of every five at a pretty high clip over the course of the season. If you do that, you're gonna be a really serious team. And if there's one in there that's a little bit ugly, well, look, that just it happens. It's baseball. I think the key for the Brewers is going to be just working things out and how the bullpen functions and how you're prepared for that. Um, that's going to be interesting to monitor as the season goes on. But it's like someone like Bryce Wilson, really, I brought him in when they did? No, it's tough. They weren't behind for very long, but there's probably different scenarios where you're behind a little earlier and Bryce ends up pitching 3 or 4 innings. I think we'll see as things unfold. But like 4-1, okay, you've got a good team up next in the Mariners, but you're back to the top of your rotation for that series. It's like, let's go. Like, that's going to be fun. And then into that, a road trip to go and play the Reds, a team who are going to be very competitive in division this year, who've got lots of young players. We'll continue to learn a lot about this group, but we could not have asked for a more positive start of the season. It would have been greedy to ask for 5-0, although we nearly got it all the same.
Also, I think the offense has had at least 7 hits in every game. They had a 16-hit game. Um, they
The
haven't
run the
necessarily
run scoring
erupted.
is a little low, but you're right. Like the ingredients are
They're
there. They may just
yeah.
need, this is not a new problem, but we may be in need of, the big hit at the right time to really kind of turn things over. Like there have been opportunities with bases loaded that they're not converting on. That's very Brewers, but I think with the makeup of this year's roster, I wouldn't say I feel like that's going to remain the case all season long. Like I think the runs will come.
I think that's something that just normalizes over. You create these chances so often that you put yourself in these circumstances enough that guys eventually cash in. Like Hoskins easily, and I think it was the last game in the Met series, that line drive down the left field line that was just foul. That's
Hmm.
like a foot or two away from being just a big hit in a meaningful spot doing damage. And those are the things that will come. And you go 4-1 to start the season, no complaints. And we see what else happens as we go along. Adam, shall we get to the Master Brewer leaderboard?
Let's do it.
All right. So collecting beers for this brief 2-game series against the Twins, Jackson Chourio, first homer of his career, had a RBI single in game one as well. Bryce Terang, big knob on the bat, choking up bat control. Bryce Terang, a little more patience displayed as well. Um,
Just big time ABs
Terang,
every time he steps up.
yeah,
Like the really
yeah.
different looking guy so far.
and we'll see how that sustains overall. But like we always say, like with how good his glove is, if he just finds some level of consistency with the bat, like you take that every day. Christian Yelich mashed the homer, had a hit today as well. Joey Ortiz only played one game, one for was it 1 for 2 with a walk, and then made a really nice play at third base. Oliver Dunn played some great defense in the game that he started, got a hit as well, drew a walk. Rhys Hoskins, a hit in game one, homer in game two. Had a nice pick at first base, I think, in today's game as well. So
Hmm.
Hoskins' defense has not been his calling card throughout his career, but hasn't hurt the Brewers thus far. And then Elvis Figueroa for his 2 innings and Abner Uribe for his save. Leaderboard through 5 games. Christian Yelich and Jackson Chourio with 3 beers. Bryce Turang, Elvis Figueroa, Abner Uribe, and Rhys Hoskins with 2. William Contreras, William Thomas, Freddie Peralta, Colin Ray, Brian Hutton, Trevor McGill, Gil Pyams, Oliver Dunn, and Joey Ortiz, each with a beer. Next up for the Brewers, they'll have an off day on Thursday. Uh, Coming to town on Friday is the Seattle Mariners. 7:10 start. Freddie Peralta against Logan Gilbert. Then on Saturday, 6:10 start. DL Hall against Bryce Miller. And then on Sunday, Colin Ray, 1:10 start, takes on the mound Emerson Hancock for the Mariners. 4-1 start to the year for the Brewers. Obviously, the Pirates have gotten off to a great start. The Cubs are doing well playing fake competition like the Colorado Rockies. The Reds have done pretty well. The NL Central, just proving people wrong through very, very small samples. But more Brewers baseball on the horizon. I'm excited to see it on TV. So I have context from things. I did this to myself. I said that I did this to myself. I wanted to be here. But sometimes you miss things not seeing on TV. But I gotta say, Adam, a day out at the ballpark, the worst day out at the ballpark is better than the best day anywhere else. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, tune in to the next episode of Cruising for Brewsing to find out if Andrew is in fact at home to
No,
record.
I will not be at home. Um,
Okay, you
uh,
may be somewhere else, but let's tune in to see if Andrew is in fact not in the same city as the Milwaukee Brewers. I mean, I think that is what people have got to come back for. So you want to
yeah,
subscribe to
I
Cruising for
I
Brewsing
will.
wherever you get your podcasts for that.
Yeah, and I promise this is the last time you'll have to hear me wax poetically about myself. Um, but hey, uh, Milwaukee's my happy place now, so I'll be around as often as I can. Is reasonable.
And when you're not around, when you are around, regardless, we will be talking Brewers again. That's Cruising for Brewsing. Subscribe for every episode throughout the season. You should also check out the rest of the GSPN podcasts. We got the main feed, the Eurostep Podcast Network for all things Milwaukee Bucks. We've got the Eurostep with Tywin Dishabrow Cody and Win at Six, myself and Jordan Tresky. Is there any playoff time? Bucks aren't inspiring confidence, but look, we've got some great players. Anything can happen. We'll be there every step of the way.
I'm headed to Fiserv in about 10 minutes.
Of course. Everyone just would assume this. Giannis is playing is the good news for you. Um,
I
for
just
all
saw.
things Green Bay Packers, Jordan Tresky and Numac have you covered over on Talk of the Tundra. And for movies, pop culture, and other things, you can listen to Make Time for This with myself and Andrew. I did promise on our last episode we'd have a Dune Part 2 pod this week. I was not privy to Andrew's plans that he was going to Milwaukee at that point, so we put that one on ice just for a little bit more, but I do promise that episode is coming next week. That's it. Thanks again to all of you for listening. Thank you, Andrew, for podcasting, for sharing your personal experiences, for being in Milwaukee to ensure the Brewers get their season off on the right foot.
Thank you, and I'm sorry.
Waiting on a tax return? Hopefully it ends up in your hands. Fraudulent tax returns due to identity theft increased by 30% in 2023. If you're in a bind this tax season, LifeLock can help. Our U.S.-based restoration specialists are experts dedicated to helping solve your identity theft issues. And all LifeLock plans are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package. So we'll reimburse you up to the limits of your plan if you lose money due to identity theft. Help protect your information this tax season with LifeLock. Save up to 25% your first year at LifeLock.com/aware.